Hello, everyone. My name is Owen Gadamer. I'm the community manager at TechWell. I'm joined today by Tom Steen, the CTO at Coveros. Tom, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, Tom and we're going to talk about a security acronym. Basically, this concept came about because I think Tom and I were talking about this months ago, and someone had started throwing IAST and RASP and SAST and DAST at me, and I didn't know what those meant. So I was like, let's sit down, let's do a basic explanation as to what these mean, how they can be used to help make your application more secure, and how we can get started. So wanted to start with Tom today talking about IAST and what it is and how it can help make your application more or your software more secure.
Yeah, so IAST is interactive application security testing. The basic idea is that you have software that watches your application running. Usually, like in a Java or a .NET world, it uses what's called the profiling API, and that's just a way of watching your running application. And it watches everything that happens in your application, and it tries to determine if that activity is somehow attacking the software. So IAST is usually, it can be pretty heavyweight because watching everything can be expensive, but it can also detect things. Now, one of the reasons people like IAST over something like DAST or SAST is because when IAST detects something, because it has a lot of context of the running application, the odds of that being really a problem and not a false positive are pretty high. So your IAST is going to find more real problems that you actually need to address. And a lot of that stems from having the context of it's watching and seeing what's happening in the process as it's running. So
Yeah.
It actually attaches to your running software, evaluates everything that goes on, and then lets you know if it thinks something's happening that is attacking your software.
People who are just hearing this explanation that you've given about IAST, and you mentioned DAST and SAST as well, how can they, or how should they, when should they get started using something like IAST?
So one of the great places for IAST is if you have a lot of legacy software, like say you're an organization that does a lot of Java and you've got a lot of legacy applications. And legacy in this context means that you have either applied very little or just some or no application security practices to that software. So going back and scanning that with something like a SAST or a DAS software can give you, if you haven't been using those all along, you could get a huge number of results, a good number of which are false positives. And I've literally seen people who got such a large number of false positives for running something on a code base that they've been building for 4 years that they just couldn't handle that information and just shut down and refuse to deal with it. Whereas IAST is you can connect it to your currently running servers in your test environments, start collecting information. And because most of what you're going to find is going to be in something you should actually address, you're going to have fewer false positives and more things to actually address and help improve the security of your software right away.
Are there specific IAST tools, applications, suites that you recommend or that you like to use?
So we've used Contrast Security's IAST tool and have liked that. There are others out there that have gotten good reviews, but that's the one that I would speak the most to.